Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. I'm really excited today to talk to you about books that are coming out this spring that I'm really looking forward to. For spring, I'm talking about April, May, and June, the second quarter of the year. I normally try to keep my number around 10, but this time around I have 14 books that I'm really looking forward to that are coming out this spring, and I want to tell you about them. So I'm going to go in publication order. According to what I could find, these are when these books are coming out, and I'll tell you just a tiny little bit about them, what stood out to me in that description or the author or whatever, why I'm excited for it. And yeah, let's just jump right in. I apologize if I'm constantly kind of looking off screen. That is where my computer is, where I have all the information about all of these books. So the first one coming out that I'm going to tell you about is by Amor Towles, who wrote A Gentleman in Moscow, Rules of Civility, and The Lincoln Highway. I've read all three of those and loved two of them. I didn't really care for Rules of Civility, but he has a short story collection coming out called Table for Two that comes out on April 2nd. And the fact that Amor Towles wrote it is enough for me to get excited about it. I don't even know how many stories it is, but they're all going to be set either in New York City or in LA. Some of them may have connections to the stories he's already written. Some may not. I'm just really excited to give some short stories by Amor Towles a try. So that is the first one. The second one coming out is called Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I have not read a lot of Abby's backlist, but I did read Part of Your World and Yours Truly and really liked both of those ones. Her newest one is called Just for the Summer. It comes out on April 2nd as well. It is going to be a romance, and the premise just sounds so fun. So we follow Justin and Emma. Both of them kind of have this curse, if you will, not an actual curse, but it seems like they have a curse on their love life where when somebody dates them and then breaks up with them, the next person that person dates is their soulmate, the love of their life. And so Justin and Emma find this out about each other and decide they're going to kind of fake date and break the curse, because then when they break up, they'll both find their soulmates next. But of course, they're probably going to fall in love, right? And so it just sounds like such a fun premise. I'm really excited for that as a romance to read for the summertime. Another book coming out on April 2nd is a historical fiction called All We Were Promised by Ashton Lattimore. This is an author I've not read from before, but this premise just sounded really good. The summary of the premise is that a housemaid with a dangerous family secret conspires with a wealthy young abolitionist to help an enslaved girl escape, all in pre-Civil War Philadelphia, which is very volatile at the time. So we're following these three different women, a socialite, an abolitionist, and an enslaved girl. I don't know how else their stories are going to connect, but I love that trope of three women in a historical fiction. I just feel like it fits, and it sounds like a book that I'm going to really, really enjoy. And I also feel like it's probably going to be a heavy one, heavy duty. I have a few more historical coming up next. So on April 9th, we have a Christian historical fiction by Christy Cambrin called The British Booksellers. This one takes place in England. It is set during World War II, but we follow these two young people. When they were kids, they were best friends, kind of not of the same class, possibly even had like a young love situation. But then the boy goes off to fight in the war. The young woman gets married, and her husband actually dies in the war. Then after the war, towards the end of the war, they both end up running a bookshop across the street from each other. So now they're rival bookstore owners. But they have all of this history together. So it's kind of like a second chance romance combined with a historical, combined with a World War II fiction, and bookish because it's set in bookshops. I am just all of those things combined into one is like my happy place, I think. I think I need to read that immediately. Also on April 9th, another historical coming out is The Outlaw Noble Salt by Amy Harmon. That's enough. Amy Harmon wrote it. I want to read it. I have only read 1-2 of hers that I didn't really love, but I've read 4 or 5 that I have really loved. This one is kind of a Wild West. Butch Cassidy is kind of a well-known outlaw, but imagine if Butch Cassidy wanted to go straight, wanted to get his life together and go straight, but all of the people that he had wronged don't really want to let him do that. So he goes incognito. He gets a new identity, goes to a new place, and kind of leaves that past completely behind him. But then he meets a woman who I think knows who he is. There's a bit of a love story in there. And that's where we're at with this story. But Noble Salt is Butch Cassidy, his alter ego or his pseudonym or his new name as he starts this life over. It's inspired by Butch Cassidy. I have no idea how much of the story is based on true events. I don't know. Did Butch Cassidy try to get his life straightened out? I don't know. But if Amy Harmon writes it, I'm going to read it. So here we have the outlaw Noble Salt. Another author that I will read anything she puts out is Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. And on April 9th, we have a new book for her called The Night War. This one is another World War II historical fiction that is set in France. And we follow a young Jewish girl who was rescued from Paris and sent to a village, chateau in the countryside of France. She doesn't know what happened to her parents. She doesn't know what happened to her friends. Like, she's kind of on her own out there, and then has this opportunity to help other people escape and find refuge. And she has to decide, is it worth it to put her life on the line to help other people or not? Another situation where the author is enough for me to know that I want to read it. She's kind of returning to her World War II storytelling, which is what we had with the War That Saved My Life, which I absolutely loved. So I'm definitely very excited to read The Night War by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley, and actually might have already read it by the time this video comes up, because that is one that I have on NetGalley and I'm hoping to read before the end of middle grade March, and I'm not sure when I'm going to be posting this video. So it's possible I've already read it. We'll see. Next up is a book that comes out on April 16th by Annie Raines, and it's called The Finders Keepers Library. This is a sweet romance story that I saw one review that said, this just feels like a Hallmark movie in a book. I'm like, okay, I'm down for that. Every once in a while, that's just a really nice kind of vibe. It's a nice palate cleanser. So I don't think that this one is going to be maybe a 5-star or earth-shattering in any way, but I believe we follow a young woman who goes to a small town where her aunt lives to help her out. And the aunt had this kind of little free library, or the Finders Keepers Library, in her backyard. But then a storm comes. I think they're in North Carolina, so maybe a hurricane, maybe just a big storm comes and destroys the backyard, destroys the library, destroys all these books. The aunt is one of those people who just loves to put books into people's hands. She gives her niece a book that is just meant to be the right thing at the right time. And while they're staying with her aunt, she connects with this guy in town. The aunt has also given him a book that is supposed to be the right book at the right time. And these two connect over the book that her aunt gave them. Just kind of a romance, kind of a small town story. Second chance romance, possibly. I'm down for a Hallmark book every once in a while. So that's The Finders Keepers Library by Annie Raines. Another middle grade that I'm super excited for is the final book in a series. It's The One and Only Family by Katherine Applegate. This is the 4th book in the series that starts with the one and only Ivan. I have loved Ivan, Bob, and Ruby's story. And here in the last book, Ivan and his wife Gorilla have a baby gorilla. And Ivan reminisces about his time before he was put into captivity at the mall. And when he was in the jungle, apparently there was a twin. I don't know, a twin brother or sister gorilla. I don't know. So he's reminiscing about his life before, as well as being a new father to a baby gorilla. And I think I think Bob and Ruby are also going to play a part in this story, as they all have in the other books as well. I just have really loved this series and am glad to finish it up, but also will be sad to say goodbye to some of these characters that have just been so wonderful to read their stories. And that one comes out on May 7th. And I was not approved for it on NetGalley. I think I was too late, or my percentage is too low. I'm not sure. That's okay. It's already reserved at the library. The next one is my only other book for May. I only had 2 May books this time around, but Leah Lewis wrote a book called Better Left Unsent. And this just sounds really fun. It's a romance. Our main character, Millie, has a very public breakup and is just really devastated. But she learns to kind of keep all of her feelings to herself and puts on a good front for people. But she vents all of her true feelings and all of her frustrations into emails that she just never sends. She leaves them in her drafts folder. However, at one point, as you know is going to happen, all of these emails get sent out and she has to deal with the repercussions of everybody learning her true feelings. And where do we go from there? I just think that that sounds horrifying, but also potentially funny and maybe good for her to realize that she can share her true self with the people around her. We'll see. But I think that is going to be a really good one. The rest of these all come out in June. So on June 4th, we have a new book from Lisa Wingate called Shelterwood that just sounds so good. Lisa Wingate has a ton of books, but on the front of this one, it says from the author of Before We Were Yours, which is one of hers that I absolutely loved. So I'm hoping it has kind of similar vibes to that one, but we have a dual timeline historical novel here. It takes place in Oklahoma, and in 1909, we follow two sisters who kind of escape their home when another sister or another person in the family goes missing, and the stepdad is kind of bad news, and these two sisters run off to the mountains to kind of hide from this horrible stepfather. We do have the Choctaw tribe is part of this, and two of the people living in the home were Choctaw girls. And I don't know if that's the two sisters that escape or not. I'm not exactly sure. But then we also have a 1990s timeline, and we follow a woman who works at a national park, and she gets involved with a case of a young woman who went missing in the park. And in the process of searching for this young woman, a cave is discovered, or a long hidden burial grounds where 3 children had been buried in the park. And so I have no idea how these two timelines are going to connect, but I do know that it's going to involve relations between the Choctaw people and the white people who live in this area through the years, and ownership of land, and also the story of these young girls and what happened to them. It sounds like it's going to be pretty heavy hitting, but also I'm probably going to love it. I'm hopeful that I'm going to love that one, but it just sounds really good. Shelterwood. On a much lighter note is the new Catherine Center book called The Rom-Commers. It does sound like it's going to be a lighthearted one. I'm hopeful that it'll be along the same lines as The Bodyguard. I did not read Hello Stranger, which is her previous newest book before this one. I've not yet read that one, but I loved The Bodyguard. I've loved everything by her, but The Bodyguard was definitely more of a rom-com than some of her other ones. And this one, I hope, with a name like The Rom-Commers, I'm hoping that it also has the lighthearted kind of romantic comedy feel. In this one that comes out on June 11th, we follow Emma, who's an aspiring screenwriter, but she's at this point in her life a full-time caretaker for her father, who's ailing and needs full-time care. So she's kind of set her dreams aside for the time being to take care of her dad. But then she gets this opportunity to go to LA for a few weeks and help rewrite the script of her idol, Charlie somebody, who is a big name screenwriter, someone that she greatly admires. Apparently he's writing a rom-com and it's horrible, but he doesn't really care about it because he's only doing it so that he can really write the story that he wants to tell. And so she gets called in to help him rewrite the script for his rom-com. He's not very excited about it at all. And she wants him to she wants to change his mind about the potential power of a well-written rom-com and a well-told romantic story. And I think she's going to try to do that by showing him what a good romance could look like. But of course, I feel like they're going to fall in love and it's all going to be a happily ever after. I'm hopeful for that. On June 18th, we have a new middle grade by Ryan Groudon, and it's called The Girl Who Kept the Castle. The description of this one says it's like Nevermore meets Howl's Moving Castle. I'm in for this one. We have a wizard who doesn't know that he's dead for a little bit. We have a groundskeeper's daughter, Faye, who's going to be our main character, and she's the one that kind of has to tell the wizard, sorry dude, but you're dead. She knows the ins and outs of this castle, and apparently a curse was put on the castle where at the next full moon or something, the castle is going to be destroyed if the curse isn't broken. So the wizard then holds this competition to anoint his next successor. We have an evil shadow queen. It just sounds like a really fun fantasy adventure middle grade by Ryan Groudon, who wrote Wolf by Wolf and Blood for Blood, which I absolutely loved. So I'm really excited for this one. On June 18th, as well as that last one I talked about, this one is also June 18th, Kimmy Cunningham Grant wrote These Silent Woods, which I read last year and absolutely loved. She has a new one coming out called The Nature of Disappearing. And this is also kind of a mystery thriller type of a book. In this book, we follow a wilderness guide who has to team up with an old nemesis, a man who ruined her life years ago. She has to team up with him because a friend who had originally introduced these other two has gone missing. So these two who kind of have butted heads and who maybe haven't spoken for a while now have to work closely together to find this other friend. This is a case of, I don't need to know much more about the story because I really loved her writing in These Silent Woods. I feel like a story like this could be really good from her because we're going to be back into the wilderness. We're going to have that suspenseful edge to it. Yeah, I think it's going to be really good. I'm hopeful. And finally, we'll end with a lighthearted read. On June 25th comes A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. And I've not yet read The Dead Romantics or 7 Year Slip by her. I know so many others have and enjoyed them. This one just sounds right up my alley though. We follow Eileen, who is a literature professor. She's feeling really stressed out, about to go take a book retreat with some friends. On the way there, her car breaks down. She has to get to a small town, or I don't know if she's towed. Somehow she gets to this small town that turns out to be the small town in her favorite romantic stories. Like the series of romance books that she loves is set in this small town that she ends up with. But it's not the setting of these books. It's the actual town. So she ends up like in her books. All the characters that she's been reading and loves are there. And then there's this grumpy bookstore owner who's also there, but she doesn't remember him from the books. So who is this guy? How is she in a book? I think this is Ashley Poston's thing in both Dead Romantics and The 7 Year Slip. We kind of have this impossible romance situation. And that's what we have here too. The Dead Romantics deals with ghosts. 7 Year Slips is like a time loop situation. And then here we have a woman going into her favorite book series. I think that sounds really fun. It's a romance, so it's going to have a happily ever after. I don't know the spice level of Ashley Poston since I haven't read her yet. So I will keep you posted. I will probably be reading this one. I have been approved for it on NetGalley. So I'm just really excited for that one. So there you have it. That's 14 books that I am really looking forward to in the next few months. Hopefully I get to some of them. I'm not always very good about getting to the books that I'm actually looking forward to, but there just are so many coming out that I wanted to tell you about. I would love to chat with you in the comments below. Which ones do you really want me to read, or which ones have you added to your TBR? I would love to hear that. Let's chat books and anything else you want to talk about down in the comments below. I always love connecting with you down there. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.